What happened to Amy Bradley? It's the subject of a highly popular Netflix docuseries right now about a 23-year-old woman who disappeared from a cruise 27 years ago. But today, in 2025, it is being reported that the show has resulted in some very significant leads. Let's talk about them. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. There is something amazing that is happening in our world today. We're seeing it more and more. We are seeing how renewed attention on an unsolved or mysterious or cold case, particularly through a show or a documentary, that can bring new leads, new developments, new answers. And that seems to be exactly what we are seeing right now with the case of Amy Bradley, or at least we can hope that is what is going on. Now, that is a name that many of you may recognize, especially now given the Netflix docuseries Amy Bradley is Missing, which released in July. At one point, it was on the top 10 charts for weeks. And I will tell you, it is being reported that due to this series, there are significant leads into what happened to this woman. March 24th, 1998. 23-year-old Amy Bradley from Virginia disappears from a Royal Caribbean cruise ship called Rhapsody of the Seas while on board with her family, as it's making its way to Curacao from Aruba. And before she went missing, she was reportedly at the ship's disco with her brother Brad. The next morning, she's gone. No evidence of her on board. Her body has never been found. One person the Netflix 3-part series focuses on is Alyssa Douglas, a musician who was playing in the band on the ship, allegedly danced with Amy only hours before she vanished. The two may have been seen together on the deck. This is according to Cosmopolitan. This is potentially supported by surveillance footage and witness accounts. To be clear, he has adamantly denied having anything to do with Amy's disappearance. He has reportedly been questioned by the FBI, took a polygraph. This is according to the Netflix documentary. Douglas spoke last year on true crime journalist James Renner's YouTube channel, saying Amy approached him that night, that she told him about her family and her life, that she was gay, that her family forced her on this vacation. And, quote, about 5 minutes to 1, I said, I have to go, I have to be out of the passenger area, and I left. That was my last conversation, last time I saw her. Now, reportedly, that is not in line with witnesses who allegedly say they saw the two together on that upper deck that I mentioned between 5:30 and 5:40 a.m. He did go on to say, though, quote, around 7 o'clock, I was awakened by a call by the hotel manager, and he asked me, Douglas, do you have a woman in your room? It was forbidden. It was forbidden dating. And I said, no. And I asked why. And he said, the woman you were talking to last night in the club, we can't find her. He explained how everybody was interrogated, lie detector tests. At that time, they didn't say anything much to me. They took the wire off me. Now, Douglas added that an FBI agent later interviewed him on multiple occasions, telling him again that he was clear. Quote, I've lost so many opportunities because of this. Once my name was entered into Google, they would say I had something to do with this missing girl, and I would lose the contract. The truth, no matter how long it is, always surfaces. Now, according to People magazine, over the years, there have been at least a half dozen alleged sightings of Amy. This includes on a Caribbean island and in Aruba. The FBI apparently looked into these potential sightings, but nothing has ever stuck. So what are we talking about here? Are we talking about an accidental falling overboard? Maybe her intentionally being pushed overboard? Maybe did she jump? Did someone kidnap her? But this is what we want to talk about. According to The Hollywood Reporter, this Netflix series has brought a lot of attention to this story, to this case, and there are now reportedly new leads. In fact, there is a source close to the production claiming to The Hollywood Reporter that there are 3, quote, very significant leads. More specifically, that a female bar server on the ship, who apparently doesn't speak much English, on the night Amy disappeared, had screamed, Senorita kidnapped, Senorita kidnapped. Now, this source told The Hollywood Reporter that the server was instructed to, quote, shut up, that she was taken away by a bartender. To be clear, this is new, it wasn't in the show, that the server only came forward after the series aired, and she is reportedly speaking with authorities. However, I will tell you, that claim has seemingly been disputed by Amy's family, because according to People magazine, Amy's mother, Iva Bradley, says that this server has not actually been found, not located, has not been interviewed by investigators. But this idea that Amy was kidnapped, that she was taken, possibly the victim of human trafficking, that perhaps she's still alive. That is a theory that has come up over the years. And according to the Netflix docuseries, there is a suspicious IP address that allegedly logs onto a missing persons website about Amy. In other words, whoever took her is maybe staying up to date on the investigation. So the idea being she was kidnapped, she was taken off the ship, and possibly sold into prostitution. And authorities were reportedly able to track that hit to an IP address of a device on a boat in Barbados. Now, that unidentified source telling The Hollywood Reporter, a lot of trafficking of drugs takes place on the water, so that's obviously highly suspicious. I will say there's another theory too. There is also the theory that it is actually Amy on that IP address, pinging the site and using it to stay in touch with her family, because apparently there are hits on that site for specific dates that may have connections to the family. According to the Daily News, Amy may not really want to come forward. Why? One theory is she may have become impregnated and had a child as a result of this sex trafficking, prostitution work. By the way, the New York Daily News reporting that a new FBI agent has been assigned to the case, that the FBI has also interviewed someone who allegedly saw Amy in Barbados. And speaking of the FBI, in a recent statement to The Hollywood Reporter, they said, "We have nothing further outside of the seeking information poster. Tips can be submitted via 1-800-CALL-FBI or at tips.fbi.gov. As for Amy's family, they apparently hired private investigators who are reportedly working with the FBI in Curacao and, quote, other surrounding countries. Amy's brother, Brad, who has been adamant about his sister's disappearance, has been really focused on trying to get answers, saying, quote, people can't understand the level of hope that we've maintained. We're still waiting for that call. I will tell you, I interviewed Brad a few months back when I was hosting Banfield on News Nation, and I asked him, after all these years, what makes you think she's still alive? He told me, quote, it's just a gut feeling. He believes she is a victim of human trafficking, saying the chances that she fell off that ship or jumped off that ship are zero. Now, Brad also sent a statement directly to Law&Crime about the search and the new investigative leads, saying, we have been encouraged by some of the leads and information that we have gotten since the Netflix series aired. However, the recent article that claims the bar worker who Elizabeth Lewis testified about has come forward is not true as far as we know. We still do not know who she is or where she is. The claim about Amy potentially mothering a child, in my opinion, is speculative at best. We are not aware of who the source was for the information in that article, but we do appreciate the attention and interest that it has sparked. Through our efforts at the state and federal levels, there will be two very important letters with certain requests sent to Attorney General Pam Bondi, FBI Director Kash Patel, and Secretary of Homeland Security, DHS, HSI, Kristi Noem, by our Attorney General Jason Miyares, Governor Glenn Youngkin, Lieutenant Governor Winsome Sears, and Senator Chuck Grassley's team at the Senate Judiciary Committee. There are things that are in the works that I cannot disclose at this point, but know that we are continuing to follow up on each and every lead we are provided and will not stop looking for Amy for answers and for accountability to those responsible for her disappearance. Now, obviously, this is a story that we wanted to bring to you, and we can do that not only because of the amazing support that we get from you all, but also from our incredible sponsor, Morgan & Morgan. This is America's largest injury law firm. This is a firm with over 1,000 attorneys. You know why they're so big? Because they win all the time. They have recovered over $25 billion for more than 500,000 clients. In fact, in the past few months, a client in Florida received $12 million after the insurance company offered just $350,000. Out in Pennsylvania, a client was awarded $26 million. That is 40 times the insurer's $650,000 offer. There's another client in Pennsylvania that received $29 million after being offered only $500,000. And even if you think your case isn't worth millions of dollars, why not just start a claim and fight for what you deserve? Morgan & Morgan, they make it so simple. You can start a claim from your phone in just 8 clicks. So if you're injured, you can easily start a claim at forthepeople.com/LC Sidebar by clicking the link below or scanning the QR code on screen. As far as Amy, she would have been 51 years old today. When she disappeared, she was 5'6". She had a tattoo on her shoulder of a Tasmanian devil spinning a basketball. tattoo of the sun on her lower back, a Chinese symbol on her right ankle, a gecko lizard on her belly button. And as the FBI investigation remains open, with a $25,000 reward, anyone with information about Amy Bradley is asked to contact their local FBI office or the nearest American embassy or consulate. Does any of this make sense? Well, I'll tell you what, I want to bring on an expert to sort it out. I want to bring on right now retired detective Lindsey Wade, who served as a Tacoma police officer for 21 years, worked cold cases, is a member of the National Institute of Justice Cold Cases Working Group. She created the Washington State Cold Cases Working Group. Thank you so much for taking the time, Lindsey. This is a really interesting situation we find ourselves in. I talked about at the top of the show that when you have a docuseries, when you have a show, it sometimes brings renewed attention to a case. Are you encouraged right now, after the popularity of this series, that we may be getting more answers, that we may be getting new leads? Or is this a situation where, unfortunately, there could be a swath of misinformation and hard to judge what to make of it?
I think both of those scenarios are accurate. So I think that having a show like the docuseries that came out with the far-reaching tentacles of Netflix and all these people around the world that get to see this documentary, I think you will have that influx of new information and people calling in tips. And so that's getting her face out worldwide, which is probably a much larger reach than this case has ever had before. So, of course, that is going to spawn lots of new leads and lots of new tips coming in. Some well-meaning people, some people that just probably have nothing but time on their hands. So I think that that is something that, while it could provide that lead that investigators need to move this case forward, it can also make it extremely difficult for law enforcement to try to sort through that mountain of information that's coming in to try to prioritize those leads.
How do they sort through it? In other words, when you look at the bar server, right, the bar server account, the family has come out and said there doesn't seem to be much there. Is that because authorities have already looked into that? Is it because that's just an outlandish idea, that there's nothing else backing it up? Does law enforcement look into everything? I mean, let's start there.
Yeah, I mean, this appears to be a huge investigation. The FBI has been involved. It sounds like there are multiple agencies involved in the investigation. So I would suspect that they have looked into every scenario and run those leads down as best they can. While some of these leads may sound far-fetched, they have to investigate them as far as they can. Now, as far as sorting through and filtering through all these leads that come in, they're going to have to look at what is actionable in the new tips that are coming in today. So some of these tips may be, just I saw somebody that looked like her 5 years ago on a beach. Is that actionable? Probably not. However, there are probably tips coming in today with concrete information that can be followed up by investigators. And so I suspect that is what they are focusing on.
When you talk about her face being out there now, even when you look at the FBI poster, she could look radically different. In your experience with cold cases, and let's say it is a missing person who is still alive and is found, isn't that a challenge to actually know what she looks like now, to be able to find her, for someone to identify her? I mean, I did mention some of those identifying tattoos, and assuming she's still alive, that those tattoos would still be prevalent. I imagine that's a big challenge.
Sure. People change. It's been a long time. She's been missing for multiple decades. So, of course, her appearance today could be dramatically different than what it was back when she went missing. She does have all those tattoos, like you mentioned, so that's helpful. Just going solely based on appearances alone, that may make things a little bit difficult. Now, she was an adult when she went missing, so that is helpful because as adults, we don't change as much as a child, let's say, that goes missing at age 5, and now you're looking at trying to locate them as an adult. So, different scenario there. But of course, time is always a challenge in any investigation, whether it be memories or whether it be appearances and the way people look.
Does kidnapping, human trafficking, drugs, does it possibly make sense here that she was taken off that ship and entered into this this prostitution ring, let's say, or this prostitution network. Is that a possibility? Have you seen cases like that before?
I personally have not investigated any cases like that. I certainly have investigated human trafficking cases, but they involve a different type of scenario, not something like this where you're on a cruise ship and someone is forcibly removed from the ship. So that's a unique scenario, and I mean, certainly it's worth looking into. And I know there have been many tips over the years that she may be trafficked and she may have been abducted and taken off the ship. And there have been sightings of her on these different islands. So I don't think that that scenario can be ruled out, but it's a hard one to follow up on at the same time.
To be clear, if that is a possibility, is someone lost in that network almost forever? I mean, what are the challenges of somebody being put into, human trafficking? What are the challenges of actually trying to locate somebody? I mean, you tell me. And particularly if, by the way, you're talking about it in this particular region.
Right. And I am by no means an expert in worldwide human trafficking. So as I mentioned, the kinds of trafficking cases that I worked on were more local based, where maybe the women who were involved, they might go from state to state, but they certainly, they weren't being taken out of the country. So that's a whole other layer of difficulty when you're trying to investigate a case like that, because, now you're talking about other countries and different policies and laws and things of that nature.
The IP address, right? This IP address that apparently made hits on the Amy Bradley missing person website, hitting on American holidays or important dates to Amy's family. If that is true, what does that tell you?
Well, there could be a few scenarios. It could be someone who's very involved in the case and very interested in following the case, who is logging in on certain days, because they're truly interested in the investigation. But I guess we can't rule out the possibility that it's someone who has taken Amy and they are the person that's logging in. And then I think that third scenario that was thrown out was the possibility that it could be Amy herself logging in and, looking to see what's going on with her investigation.
It's interesting when you hear that response from Brad, that this idea of she has a child, she's alive. Well, first of all, he believes that she's alive, but this idea that she may not be coming forward because she has a child as a result of this sex work, he doesn't believe that. Do you think there's anything to that? I mean, again, it's the idea of, well, if Amy's alive, why wouldn't she come forward?
Right.
And that one, I struggle with that one too.
Yeah. I mean, but think about the J.C. Dugard case, for a second. She was being held in her abductor's backyard, essentially. She had, by that time had children with him. And even when she was rescued, it took a while for her to actually say who she was, right? Like, she didn't just come right out and flag down the first police officer that she saw to tell them who she was. So I think it's hard for us to imagine a scenario like that, where if you did have an opportunity to leave or run away, you just, why wouldn't you? But I think we've seen in many high profile cases over the years, especially people that have been abducted, that it's not quite that simple.
And I hate to ask a juvenile question here, but DNA technology is very different today than it was years ago. Is there anything from familial DNA testing, genealogical databases, rapid DNA analysis, anything that can be used to investigate a claim that Amy Bradley has a child right now?
Without Amy or the child putting their DNA into one of these databases, I think it would be highly unlikely that you would be able to utilize one of these new techniques to determine if that scenario is in fact valid, right? You'd have to have somebody to compare it to.
The idea that she fell off the ship, so whether she was pushed off the ship, whether she jumped off the ship, whether she accidentally fell off the ship, you're on this cruise ship in a large body of water. Where do you stand on that theory and the difficulty in recovering a body? Maybe that could explain the lack of answers so many years later. It is a possibility that has to be considered. Where do you stand on that one?
It's interesting because I did watch the documentary, and I had a lot of questions about just the last moments that she was seen by her family. And, I wanted to know more, and unfortunately it wasn't covered on the documentary, but I wanted to know more about, those last moments where she was seen out on the deck. And then the time, if she did leave the room, I guess I wanted to know more about that. Like, nobody saw her come in off the patio, no one heard her leave. Were her shoes left on the terrace area? These are just all questions that kind of popped into my mind as an investigator as I'm watching this. And knowing, I was just on a cruise several months back, and I experienced that when you open those doors, those sliding glass doors, they make a lot of noise, right? And so it's like almost like a wind tunnel. And so I was just also kind of curious about that. Like, did anybody actually hear the door open at any time when she was out there on the patio? So I think for me personally, I have a lot more questions than answers with this case, probably like everyone else.
Yeah.
Would I rule out the fact that she could have, fallen overboard? I mean, I don't think you can rule anything out at this point.
If it's true that a new FBI agent has been assigned to the case, reopened in a way, is that significant?
Sure. And that means, in my mind, that means that, there is some urgency with this investigation. And it sounds to me like the FBI is putting resources towards either a renewed effort in this investigation, or perhaps they need additional resources because of the influx of tips coming in.
I want to get your opinion on the statement from Brad, her brother. Through our efforts at the state and federal levels, I mentioned this before, through our efforts through the state and federal levels, there will be two very important letters with certain requests sent to Attorney General Pam Bondi, FBI Director Kash Patel, Secretary of Homeland Security Christina by our Attorney General, Governor, Lieutenant Governor, Senator Chuck Grassley's team at the Senate Judiciary Committee. There are things that are in the works that I cannot disclose at this point, but know that we are continuing to follow up on each and every lead we are provided and will not stop looking for Amy. And it goes on a little bit more, as I mentioned before, but what could that be?
Well, it sounds like you mentioned earlier that they've hired their own team of private investigators. So it's very possible that they have uncovered new information within their own team of investigators. And, perhaps they're looking for additional assistance from these agencies that you've mentioned.
Do you feel confident that we are going to get some sort of update in this case? We're going to get some sort of answer regarding Amy Bradley? 27 years later now? You tell me. I mean, I know it's hard to guess, but you tell me.
It is. I mean, I think statistically speaking, it's a rare occurrence when a case that is this old does, finally break open and you find out what happened or you locate the person. But that being said, we know it happens. It does happen. So for her family, they're not giving up hope, and they want answers, and they want to find her, and I don't blame them. If it was, my sister or my loved one, I would be in the exact same boat.
Yeah. Lindsey Wade, thank you so much for taking the time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And that is all we have for you right now here on Sidebar. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. You can follow me on X or Instagram. I'm Jesse Weber. I'll see you next time.